How's everybody doing? Does everybody know what and who DIU is? Kind of. Okay, good. I assure you, you guys won't be bored. My name is Johnson Wu. I'm with Defense Innovation Unit, Cyber and Telecom Portfolio. I run commercial engagements, and I'm sometimes the technical lead. Joining us on this panel is an esteemed commercial partner of ours, VP GM of Axonius Federal, Mr. Tom Kennedy. And next to Tom is Ms. Kate Stowe, who's our acquisition specialist as well as defense engagement exec. And finally, last but not least, Ben Quimby, who's our project manager and who I have the pleasure of supporting in his many, many projects with the portfolio throughout the years. So come this August, DIU will be 10 years old. In 2015, at that time, we saw the founding of the previous incarnation of DIU, which is DIU-X, and two evolutions later, now we're in DIU 3.0. What I'd like to do, Kate, if you don't mind,
Sure.
is spend the next few minutes maybe talking a little bit about DIU and what its current evolution does.
Ben's gonna click. Is this on? Okay, great. So DIU's mission is to accelerate the adoption of commercial technology at speed and scale. And the way that we do that, Ben, if you'll hit the slide. Is in three different ways. As Johnson just mentioned, if you've known DIU prior, one of these ways will sound familiar, and then the two other ways are kind of how we're evolving as an organization. The first is our core mission, and that's to synchronize the warfighters' requirements with commercial needs. So we partner hand in hand with our DoD warfighters and find out what it is that the problems that they have that they need solved. And then we work closely with commercial industry to find solutions that can help solve those problems. We do that through lowering the barrier of entry for our commercial industry partners to work with the DoD. Many of you I'm sure have, worked with the DoD previously, it is not easy, and it's very resource demanding, can take a really long time. DIU has worked really hard over the last few years to create a process that will expedite the timelines, lower the amount of resources required by a company to work with the DoD. So lowering that barrier of entry is something we're very proud of and we work very hard to do. And the last is to synchronize and build a cohesive innovation ecosystem within the DoD. And we do that more kind of less industry facing, but more internal within the DoD. Next slide, Ben. So it's just a kind of a picture to show the different ways that we do that through a organization built with primarily military members, contractors, and a few civil servants that are all mostly handpicked to work for DIU. We build a strong relationship with our warfighter to create the concepts and the problems that we need solved. Then we develop those solutions. We prototype. That's a key word here, and Ben's going to talk more about that. Is we're a prototyping organization, and then we partner with those warfighters to move to production and scaling. Next slide. There are 7 portfolios across DIU, spanning mostly, as you can see, mirroring commercial technology sectors. But one of the things I'll note is that DIU is a very flat organization. We aren't very big comparatively, and we work hand in hand together across these portfolios. So just because you see a cyber telecom showing up here doesn't mean we don't do AI/ML or autonomy type technologies, space technologies, all within cyber. And then, Ben, I think we turn it over to you to talk about how we do this.
Okay. I'm going to skip over this one real quick. Can you guys hear me okay on this mic? I'll just stay here for this. Okay. This slide just kind of highlights our position in between our DoD partners and an industry. And so the process that we follow is designed to have value to both sides, right? For our DoD operator partners, we're trying to get capability into their hands to solve the priority problems that they have today quicker. And for the commercial industry partners that we work with, we're trying to provide a pathway for quick contracting and iterative prototyping so that they can meet the need of the warfighter in a way that doesn't require, an entire federal sales and accounting and a marketing team to accomplish. So I'll go into a little bit more detail on our process here. The core of our process, what we like to kind of emphasize, is we're built for speed, and that our goal is 90, 120 days from when we put a problem statement out publicly to going through these phases of down selection to getting companies on contract. The period of time at the top where it says problem curation and diligence, that is where we try to invest a lot of our effort up front. That's where we're working with our mission partners, the folks in the agencies or the commands that we're working with, in order to really understand what their problem is and be able to define it in a way that makes sense to commercial industry. So to get away from pages and pages of very strict requirements to more of a problem statement type of approach. And that gives commercial industry the ability to offer up solutions that maybe the defense partner wouldn't have even thought of because, originally they had a very constrained view of what it is that they needed. And so we spend a lot of time up front as DIU working with our defense partners to make sure that we understand the problem, making sure that they have a process in place once we get these companies on contract to provide them with that capability. How are they going to test and evaluate it? How are they going to determine whether or not this meets the need? And that looks different for every project that we do. We do a lot of projects where we're working directly with some operational customer. And honestly, we prefer having that feedback. But it's also important that we have program offices involved early on as well. So every project is a little bit different, but it usually involves somebody representing kind of the traditional acquisition and program management side of the house, so that we understand who would sustain whatever capability that we're able to get for the operational partner. And then somebody representing that operator need so that we understand, is this actually solving your problem, not just checking off a bunch of boxes of requirements that somebody drew up. So once we get to that point where we think we're ready to launch a project, that's when we put this problem statement out publicly on our website. We call it an area of interest. It gets publicly announced at diu.mil, and it's usually a shortened version of a requirement, right? So if there are no-fail things, like it has to be able to work in a standalone environment, for example, versus being able to be consumed from the cloud as a software as a service. If there are red line requirements like that, we'll put those in. But otherwise, we try and keep it as broad as we can, describing the problem that we're trying to solve. And that allows for maximum flexibility from industry to propose solutions that might solve the problem. We let that problem statement sit out usually for about 10 business days on our website. We also do a bunch of market research and diligence ahead of time to ensure that commercial partners that we know are in the market are aware that this solicitation is going to go out. So we do ensure that we have a group of companies that we know should be able to respond to the requirement that are teed up. But the requirement goes out, or the AOI goes out publicly, and anybody is free to respond to that. Depending on the project and how niche or how broad the problem statement is, we can get anywhere between a few dozen to hundreds of respondents in that 10 days. And so the first phase of our down selection process is to take those responses, and those responses from companies are a pitch deck, if you will, a slide deck of no more than 15 slides, or a white paper of no more than 5 pages. The idea there is that we're looking generally for things that the company has already built or that they already have a plan for, right? Every project is a little bit different, but we're not generally looking for a full development proposal. We're looking for things that already are existing and that have some kind of commercial validation. So the idea is that they should be able to provide that response quickly, and we should be able to quickly filter through and figure out which ones could viably meet the need. So that first phase is filtering through and finding the ones that really do seem like they have a solution that we could look at, test out, and evaluate. Phase 2 is we bring in somewhere on the order of a dozen, maybe 20 at the most, of those companies back to do in-person pitches with DIU and our mission partner acting as kind of the evaluation panel for that. And so there's a little bit more back and forth there, a little bit more deeper dive into the requirements. And then after that phase, we usually get down to a handful, 1 to 5 maybe, companies that get put on contract to do that prototyping. Or you could think of it as like a proof of value, proof of concept maybe in commercial language, but it's a paid prototyping period with the partner, and those look different for every project, but the intent is to have maximum amount of feedback from the partner and kind of an iterative project life cycle so that we can make corrections as we go through and make sure that the end product is actually what meets the needs of the operator. I think I'll stop there because I'm probably chewing up too much of our time. We'll have an opportunity for questions at the end, so I'll go ahead and stop there, and I'm going to turn it over to Tom. Let me quickly queue up your slides, Tom.
Thank you.
So while Tom is preparing, I do have a few things that I can share from my perspective in working with Axonius, the company, even before Axonius Federal was founded. Axonius was one of the companies that we curated in the solutions curation phase of a project of what I call an umbrella project for rapid and automated patching of software. So I'll let Tom talk about what actually Axonius does, but Tom's company represents a very successful from prototype to full corporate enterprise-wide transition and adoption of the product, and to the point where the company even got General Robert Skinner to be on their team most recently. Congratulations. You have FedRAMP Moderate. You have successfully replaced CMRS. Well, anyway, I'll let you talk about all those.
Johnson, thank you so much. So first off, I am very proud to be on the stage with Defense Innovation Unit. We have very much valued the partnership. Johnson, thank you for all your advocacy over the years. So Axonius is one of many companies that graduated out of the DIU program. And so I wanted to tell you a little bit about Axonius and, more importantly, kind of our journey with DIU. it was interesting. Ben laid out the desired kind of steps, and I'll give you a little real world, like what did it look like for Exonius. So first off, Exonius. The prototype that we responded to from DIU the acronym was CAM, Cyber Asset Inventory Management. We also sometimes get lumped into the category of CASM, Cyber Asset Attack Surface Management. But if you think about cybersecurity and visibility of all of your assets and software, that's really the core of what Exonius does. We do have a booth in the middle of the floor, so if you're interested in learning more about Exonius, please stop by. But visibility is just the first step in great cyber hygiene, right? What we enable our customers to do is really to put that data into actionability, right? And not only identify blind spots in your cybersecurity defense, but then go patch them through automation. So exciting stuff. So let's talk about our DIU journey. So I have the milestones up here. So for us, this goes back to 2020, where DIU posted the original area of interest. They had roughly, I think, a couple of dozen responses that we ultimately won that competitive solicitation. So that turned into an award for a prototype. And again, the scope of the work was to increase comprehensiveness, speed, and accuracy of the cyber asset inventory management on DoD networks. The prototype, so by the way, as a very young company going through this process, we had to put together a pretty significant proposal effort, to go respond to the effort, but it was well worth it. In August, we got the prototype award, and it was a pretty quick cycle here. We actually finished the prototype successfully, and DIU granted a success memo, which was a great artifact that was kind of great credibility for Exonius for sure. Once we completed the prototype phase, then you got into the September of 21. We actually got a contract to enable us to go sell the prototype software out into the market. And we also got what they referred to as a production pilot. So basically the production pilot was, okay, basically demonstrate everything that you showed in the prototype, but go do it in an actual production environment with the DoD. We partnered up with JSP, the Pentagon, to go deploy the software. And we successfully completed that production pilot, so it was a one-year duration. Now we are in full production across many DoD entities. We're in a pretty exciting place. So in short, what did DIU kind of help us as a young company to get into the DoD? First and foremost, one of the hardest things is the ATO, getting the authority to operate. So DIU was a great partner to help us achieve that and a reusable ATO across the DoD. They established a contract vehicle. Again, something that's sometimes very hard. So we had a contract vehicle that was easy to use. They were always great about helping us with credibility and doing reference calls, government to government reference calls when needed and appropriate. And of course, they did some of the initial seed funding to get the prototype and the initial award off the ground. So again, that was our kind of journey with DIU through the whole process, and I couldn't be more grateful for the process, and has really helped us scale and go much faster across the DoD.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thanks for all the kind compliments. So, I actually have a question for the whole panel here. First is, during the prototype, full disclosure here, DIU was in the second iteration when we ran that solicitation. We were very short on DIU, I would call Director's Discretionary Reserve funding. We didn't fund the prototype much. Therefore, in terms of scale, we weren't able to do too much with scaling. It's pretty much proof of value, proof that the thing works. Maybe it's a sensitive question for Kate because I got that sensitive question a lot as of 2 weeks ago. People would come to RSA. So we several of us survived RSA last week, and 2 weeks ago there was this thing out there in the news saying, "Hey, DIU is rich. So Johnson, are you going to fund us with a SBIR or CRADA, or do I have to go through a consortium, yada, yada, yada?" Kate, would you like to comment on that?
I don't know if we're rich.
That's what they say.
So there has been a shift in the funding for DIU. Like Johnson said, before the 24 budget, we were really dependent on OPM, other people's money. We would partner with an organization. We would do the acquisition and procurement of the prototype on their behalf, but it was their funding. We are still doing that. I want to foot stomp that we are still doing that. We are still partnering with organizations, and we are still very gladly taking their funding and helping them with the mission. But we do have a few dollars of our own now. Primarily, those dollars are being used to support the combatant commands and the services in a way to either help them expedite a capability gap. So if their own budget dollars aren't coming for another year or so, we can get a project kicked off sooner. We've also been able to buy down risk for larger programs of record by looking at commercial technology as a way to prove out a concept or fill a gap as they wait for a bigger project to be completed. We've also been able to buy production runs. One of the great things about the funding that we've been entrusted with is that it is a new type of funding that is essentially colorless. So we've been able to use it either on development or production, which is really great news for many of the folks sitting right in front of me, is that in the past we were dependent on the warfighter or the sustaining organization to palm form and bring along those production dollars. That can take time, sometimes 5 years, and at that point it's OBE. But if DIU has some funding that we can say buy that first production lot with, it gets it into the hands of the warfighter sooner, faster, while the service waits for their budget money to come along. So yes, we do have a few dollars now, but we are using it in kind of the ways I just described, but still also partnering with organizations and helping them spend their money.
Thanks, Kate. So switching topics a little bit, increasing the chances of getting from phase 1 to phase 2, and also the point of being commercial and validated. Ben, do you have any tips for maybe our commercial partners in the audience?
All right, let's see, is this working? Okay. Yeah, so I kind of alluded to the fact that every project is a little bit different. We try very much to telegraph in the AOI, in the problem statement, exactly the kind of thing that the mission partner is looking for, and whether or not there are any hard line requirements, or whether they're fairly flexible in terms of the kinds of things that they'll be able to consume, right? So if it's going into a use case where it's got to operate in a disconnected environment, then we'll put that up front so that the people that are responding to it aren't just going to say, "Here's my thing and it's SaaS, take it or leave it," right? Now I know a lot of companies will take what they offer to the commercial customers and be able to tweak it slightly for a military use case, and we welcome that as well. Every project and every partner has different requirements though, and different opinions on things, and so one of the things is how developmental versus how already out of the box are they willing to go, and so that's something that we try to telegraph again in the in the AOI by saying things like if they're only interested in something that's already ready to go today, then it might say something in the AOI along the lines of I don't know, what's the phrase we use? Preference will be given to companies that have an existing solution that they can demo, at the time of the pitch, or encourage to provide commercial references. Where else is this thing deployed today? Is it deployed in Fortune 500? Is it who else is using this, right? So those are the kind of clues that we might put in there. If a mission partner is looking for something that's ready today, if they're more along the lines of looking for, hey, we know this is very customized, we know probably nobody has anything exactly like this today, then the language might be a little bit different to say, hey, we're open to something that looks like a 18-month to 24-month development timeline or something like that. I will say though that DIU has a bias towards doing projects that are more commercially available today versus developmental. And we didn't really touch on that on the slides, but that kind of goes back to the initial philosophy that we were started under. There is a slide in there, I'm not going to pull it up, but it basically talks about, it shows the amount of money that's put into R&D in commercial tech companies and venture-backed companies. And it shows it, in relation to the money that like the government is putting into R&D, or that the defense primes are able to put into IRAD and things like that. In some cases, it's not a fair comparison, but it's really meant to just show that there's a whole lot of capital out there that's being deployed in the commercial market to solve problems that the DoD also has. And so if we can leverage solutions that have already been built using other people's money, in this case, venture and commercial companies as customers, then the DoD can just act as another customer and benefit from being able to consume those solutions as just another customer, versus having to pay for a very customized defense solution that also requires a huge maintenance and sustainment tail. So that's kind of the DIU bias, is where there is a robust commercial market of solutions that we can bring in to solve a DoD problem, that's where we're most excited to be deploying our resources with our partners. But again, I'll go back to the caveat, every project is different, and we try to make sure that the language in there kind of telegraphs to companies what it is that our partners are willing to look or to accept or to look for.
Thanks, Ben. A very similar question for Tom. So when we were first curating solutions for the project, Axonius came in as, okay, VC funded, commercially validated, somewhat of a small company, the founder being Israeli and part of the 8200 team was kind of okay. And also there is this thing about, are you ready to have your solution deployed in the DoDIN? And maybe that also explains why it took you so long to get to full production, because a lot of our other projects don't involve connecting into the DoDIN, or it's simply a subscription service. and so it's not subject to as high of a rigor in terms of certifying the product. Going back to winning the solicitation, let's share with the audience what kind of references and validations you had to pull off, especially during phase 2, to convince the selection committee that the product is worthwhile.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of our complications that is worth noting is as we were going through this process with DIU, we were going through a parallel process. As Johnson mentioned, we do have foreign owners for Exonius. So we were going through our facility clearance process and our mitigation process. So we were actually tackling kind of both things at once, which was pretty crazy. But we are through all of that now and in a full FCL, fully mitigated company. And I think that we were probably fortunate to go through both at the same time. As Johnson said, and I think that this is probably a best practice for all young technology companies. The old saying, your best way of selling is reference selling, and let your customers sell for you. And Exonius has always been incredibly fortunate of having a very strong customer base that was willing to go out and advocate for us. So when any of those questions came up around, well, what's your origin story about, or any kind of questions, we always had very strong customers that were willing to go out and advocate and say, hey, they're really great in solving problems for us. So we leaned on the Department of Homeland Security, who did some reference calls. We actually leaned on a great advocate in the commercial world, Schneider Electric, that did some advocation for us. And again, at the end of the day, as we went through this whole process, it just gives us so much more credibility that we've kind of been there and done that and our DoD tested. And I would also say, Johnson, that's one of the biggest benefits for us, kind of post going through the process, is just DIU's willingness to continue to help us and be references and help us get out there across the DoD.
So, how long did it take for you to get from lab test to getting a success memo? Oops, Chris. It's probably less than a year, right?
Yeah, actually six months.
6 months after.
From prototype to success memo.
How were you able to leverage the success memo with a transition to the next phase with DISA?
So that success memo was something that we were very proud of and something that we used quite a bit as we got into other procurement motions across the DoD. So not only in our production pilot work with DISA, but also as we started to develop and nurture a pipeline across the DoD, we were able to use this success memo and that artifact to help us really gain instant credibility.
Talk about success memo. So just to expand a little bit on the success memo, the success memo acts from a DoD perspective and a contracting perspective, it acts actually as a sole source justification. So for our DoD companies, once awarded a success memo, they can then go out and secure a sole source contract with any other DoD entity. They are considered having been awarded full and open competition. So we, just like Tom's mentioned, we have countless companies that have taken that success memo and then gone to a different DoD agency and been awarded a contract without having to compete again. So that's huge. If you've ever tried to do sole source contracting in the government, there's probably almost very little things that are harder than that. It's very, very, very difficult. So to be a young company and then have that piece of paper that says now you can get on contract with us without having to do a full and open competition. That's huge. So.
And Tom, you folks obviously didn't come to DoD via participation in a consortium, right? So Kate, can you maybe clarify to the audience our OTA process?
So that's something we often get asked. Is this just a big consortium? And we are not. Every time we release a area of interest, it is full and open. So it's not like we have a stacked deck of companies that we go to. It literally goes out to the public, and anybody can put a proposal against that solicitation. So that's a big differentiator between a lot of the bigger acquisition organizations that say they move fast. When you already have a pre-vetted, and there's a time and a place for those types of contract IDIQs, consortiums, where they make sense. But DIU is able to actually move quickly through full and open competition. So that is a big foot stomp right there. We are not a consortium.
So switching topics a little bit, we all know that, well, I hope Tom agrees, is the DIU execution of the CSO, once the solicitation is posted, is very efficient. That's kind of what our claim to fame is. But a lot of times, both the mission partners and the commercial partners will come to me and say, "Oh, I thought that you've been brewing this idea for a long time now. Why haven't you run the solicitation yet?" Maybe for Ben and Kate, can we share some of our opinions on what we sometimes observe as how do you call it? Operator partner initiated asks versus policy initiated asks.
Yeah, I think I alluded to that a little bit in my comments earlier. So that what you're really referring to, Johnson, is that initial problem curation phase that was on that funnel slide. And I mentioned that we stay in that phase for as long as it takes for us as DIU to feel comfortable that the mission partner is ready to move forward. So we have a pretty quick process on our side to get our leadership to approve a project, but it is an approval process. So when I'm working with, I'm a program manager in the cyber portfolio. I run a variety of projects with mission partners. So when I'm talking to them about what's next, what is it that's top of mind that we can help you solve, one of the things that we're looking for is how fast are you ready to move out on this, so that when we do actually release the solicitation and we're in that window where we're trying to move really fast to get from the top of the funnel where we have a whole bunch of people responding to a couple companies on contract at the end of that, that the mission partner is ready to execute as soon as the contracts are awarded. So what we don't want is rapid contract writing and then everybody sitting around waiting for the government to take an action. And I've been on projects where that's been a problem before, and so we try to mitigate that by spending more time in that problem curation phase up front. Johnson, you mentioned operator-driven versus policy-driven. That's one way of looking at it, I think. There are some big items that hit the press, and everybody knows that, let's say, zero trust is a thing that the DoD cares about today, right? And so there might be an understanding that there's momentum behind that, or post-quantum cryptography, or AI in general. Like how's the DoD using LLMs to further its mission, or whatever the case might be, right? And those are important trends to follow. We make sure that we're following those trends, but we really aren't going to launch a project unless we have a partner that has a very specific problem that they're trying to solve, and a timeline, a rapid timeline that they're trying to solve it in. So if someone comes to us and says, "Hey, we hear AI is a big thing. Can we do an AI project with you guys?" I mean, that's the start of a conversation, but that's certainly not. I can't go to my leadership and say, "We're going to do an AI project. Is everybody on board with this?" There has to be a very specific problem that we're trying to solve, and artificial intelligence may be the way that we solve that. It may not be, right? Chances are today it's going to be involved in some way. But we had a similar issue when the government was really pushing for 5G adoption, right? And so we had an understanding that we really needed to get on the 5G train. We needed to be incentivizing development and things like that so that we wouldn't fall behind to China and all these other strategic concerns. But for us to launch a project, we needed to find partners that had a specific use case in mind, right? Not, hey, we want to use 5G, but hey, we have this problem and we think that 5G is the enabling technology that will help us get to a better solution than what we have today. Will give us that generational leap in capability versus what our operators have today. So that's kind of the nuance that that we deal with, and we try to deal with that up front so that when we're ready to execute, we're able to execute fast.
So sometimes I use my pet peeve. The sun, moon, stars really have to align. There has to be leadership blessing. There has to be a clear description of the use case, and there has to be assignment of responsibilities to test. Last but not least is the funding of the back-end post-transition. And Kate, I'm going to put you on the spot. How important is it for us to identify a PEO on the back end, especially given now that we are rich?
Stop saying that.
I know, Johnson, you're the one perpetuating this now.
No, I've been brainwashed by all the vendors from last week. They all come to me and say that we're rich.
No. Having a transition partner is extremely important to us, and I think it's extremely important to industry, right? We don't succeed if our companies don't succeed. And I think that DIU takes that very seriously. It doesn't do our warfighter any good, and it doesn't do our company partners any good if we put a great prototype out there and everybody loves it, and then we do nothing with it. And so we found that if we're not walking, lockstep with a transition partner from the beginning, even if that transition partner isn't funding the project or isn't even the driver of the project, having them identified and a part of the team from the get-go obviously increases our probability that program office or service is going to pick up the capability and then move it into a program of record and to sustain it. We have some examples where we have a project, a 5G project for air-ground or aerospace ground equipment. It was a Navy-led project, OSD funded, but the Air Force has the sustainment of age equipment out of Robbins. And so we made sure that we made them aware of the project and gave them, kind of an open door to flight follow and to see how the capability transpired, so that if it met their requirements, that they could then pick that up and take it forward. So that is something that I think we are, as an organization, growing. It was not necessarily a priority from the jump, but we're realizing more and more that having our PEOs and our services partnered with us is extremely important.
Thanks, Kate. Last question before we open up to the audience. Sole source requests. Oftentimes, Kate, especially for you, we have, and for me, so Kate from the mission partner side and yours truly from the commercial partner side. Surely DIU can work fast, and I know this guy who needs our product, and can you facilitate that, and can you do it right away?
No, we can't, because we do everything full and open. So we don't award a sole source contract. So it has to be one fair and square, full and open. So what do I say? As Johnson says, if you have a great product, then it will win the competition. So you just need to compete with everybody else. And we tell our mission partners that too. Listen, I'm sure you have found a company that is amazing. And when we release a solicitation and they put a proposal in, if they're as amazing as you think they are, then they will most likely rise to the top. So,
just like Axonius did.
yeah. And one of the things to note too is that when we award, we often award to 2 to 3 companies, if not even more. That increases the probability of success, right? Not every company, even once they get going, will make it all the way through. It keeps competition alive and healthy through the prototyping phase. And it also gives more companies a chance at that production contract. So we've multiple projects right now with multiple companies on contract.
Sweet. And it's about time. We're going to open it to the audience. Questions welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for the panel. My name is Ning Li. My company is PD Inc. International. We specialize in cybersecurity. We currently have contracts at DISA. So I'm wondering where you guys were last year. My company is very innovative. We very, very much appreciate opportunities like this. Rapid prototyping get to the market, but we found it's not that easy in the government space. Because we can see Axonian's success story is because it's venture capital funded initially, but as you all know, innovation life cycle. It's not always step 1, 2, 3, 4, because it's innovation. Sometimes it's chaotic. We have been on the ground, right? Understanding the government's cybersecurity needs, especially from governance, technology response, and so there are innovations actually being built because of the DoD problems, or we're familiar with because we're on the ground, and so we've been tracking. So I guess my question, I'm sorry for the long-winded question. So there is a tech watch list, because this is the first time I heard of your unit, which is like, where have you been? So we've been watching, we've been tracking with the Emerging Technology Office at DISA and trying to understand the relationship, because they gave us, some kind of forecast of your portfolio watch list, and we have some technologies actually meet some of the topics. But just now I'm looking at your website, the topics are not there. Like, how do we keep track of that so we can be on top of it? Then we can provide you the viable solution, because currently the solution we're providing to our customer, oftentimes you depend on a champion, right, in your organization. Like Mr. Wu said, it's always the star has to align. So you have champion and you have the solution. So you actually got ATO, but it's like 1 or 2 cases. How do you perpetuate? Like, how do you facilitate, help us? Because innovation is difficult, because you have all these smart people. You focus on the solution, but then there's funding and the policy and the relationship. how do we navigate this? And
Let me give this a try.
yes.
So first off, let's see. You're looking at a third of the cyber portfolio here over at Defense Innovation Unit. We're very, very lean. We unfortunately, well, my fault. We don't have the concentric circle that chart that DISA publishes every year on what's on the radar, what's under execution, what's in full production, and all that. And so far, I must confess, my crystal ball when it comes to forecasting demand has almost always been off. For example, the cyber asset inventory came from the rapid patching thing. Once we know that we're committed, we just ran the solicitation within, I'd say, 2 months. So we are very fast, and once it gets ascertained, we run the solicitation real quick. If you go to the DIU website and register your company into the intake process, you will be notified of actual solicitations that are coming out. However, you won't be notified of topics. Like, what are we looking at? The cyber portfolio right now has 4 lines of interest that we're telling the industry, but we don't have any specific use cases. If there is one, we're gonna run the solicitation, and it's going to be on the website.
So I will offer too, is that we work on behalf of the customer. And so what you're referring to is Cyber Command puts out their challenge statements, DISA puts out their areas of interest, things like that. You're not going to necessarily see DIU repeat those back because we work for instance, the advanced technology for DISA, we work for them. So if DISA has a problem and we're the right tool, acquisition tool to use to get after that problem, then we'll go work with them. But what I will say is that third pillar I talked about of unifying the innovation ecosystem, one of the lines of effort under that is a recognition that the industry needs insight into the problems. And so they are in the midst of building a platform that will enable both DoD and industry to look across and see what DoD problems there are across the board. So a company can go in and say, I have for instance, we want to bring to market a particular technology. Does the government have a demand signal anywhere? Is there a demand signal in the government for that technology? So as you kind of figure out where and the path a company wants to take, you can use that resource. For us, we can look at it and say, hey, before I release this solicitation, have we released it 10 other times? And we're not going to just repeat effort. Can I just go pick it up off the shelf, if you will, from another DoD agency that's procured it? So we hear that issue, and that is one of the ways DIU is kind of trying to help the greater ecosystem. But I would say our core mission is working on behalf of those mission partners. Mm-hmm. So when you're bringing to us, it's good to know where a mission partner wants to go. We try to stay in locks, and understand them, but we wouldn't be the ones that would, put that out there. We would look to the mission partner to put that information out.
Okay, so I think now I understand, because I thought unit drive those topics.
We do not.
Okay, so
we
it's
work
the
on
other
behalf of the organizations that drive those topics.
Understood. I'd like to follow up to get more understanding.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe we can facilitate you of the need also, because maybe there are mission partners or customers, clients, they didn't know that
You guys are also our best leads too. We often tell industry, hey, if you know about us and you know that we're away, please, and you have government customers that don't have a way to get on contract, we're here to help.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys very much. Tom Perry, VG Systems. I have a list of questions, and I'm going to ask you two of them. The first one is, most of my questions are probably questions everybody else has in here. We want to follow up. What's the best way to reach out to you guys and who to talk to have that conversation?
There's a Work With Us link for commercial partners on the DIU website.
Okay.
It's very simple. You can upload a few little bits and pieces of info about your company. We have a place for you to upload your technical deck. We even have a place for you to upload a video link. So the commercial we call it ComOps now.
Okay.
So the reason why we ask our commercial partners to do that is sometimes a specific commercial offering may cross between like AI and cyber and human systems, like maybe it's a wearable, cyber and telecom, that's us, and also space. There's, like, for example, SATCOM 5G. So that my counterparts in other portfolios and also the intake cells and the enhancement cells and other divisions within our commercial operations group can have eyeballs on the solution. And for sure, you will be notified of relevant solicitations straight into your mailbox if it doesn't get to spam. And sometimes if my counterparts are running like industry days and things like that. Now, that's rare for our portfolio, but there are other sub-organizations that would do that. Then they will know to invite you guys.
Perfect. Now I know where to go to ask my questions. The bigger second question is more technical. This success memo, does that officially operate as a JNA?
Yeah.
Okay. That's huge.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So you can use you can do FAR-based production contracts with a success memo, and then you can also use OT production contract authority with the success memo. So yeah, so we've seen both be successful. I will say that the greater contracting community is doesn't always understand that.
Okay.
But we have a awesome contracting. So DIU has in-house contracting. Again, we don't always advertise ourselves as such, but we really do mimic a acquisition office. So we have program managers, finance, contracting officers, and so we do that process soup to nuts. We will oftentimes educate contracting officers on how to use the success memo to justify sole source. So
You're trying to be my best friend.
yeah, yes. So we also offer for contracting officers to come and work for DIU for a year and then go back out as a way to kind of continue to educate and broaden the use of the CSO.
You guys are doing great work. Thank you.
Thank you. One last question, maybe?
Thank you. So, Cynthia Hinton from DISA J5. Where can I find the success memos? Is that available to DoD personnel?
So I'm not sure is the catalog up to date?
The catalog is fairly up to date. On the website, there is there's a capabilities catalog page, but it may not be comprehensive, I must say.
Right. I was thinking of, like, is there any more, like, the actual memo that you guys
So
are signing off
you would have to reach out to
you guys?
to one of us to get the success memo.
Gotcha.
The contracting office that we worked with in, for instance, DISA, they may have a copy of it as well.
Okay.
But probably the easiest is if there's a specific capability is to come through one of us.
Thank you. And
Yep.
great presentation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Round of
everybody.
applause for the audience. Thank you for coming. And Tom, thank you very much for being such a great partner. Also, Kate and Ben for being such great teammates.
And
Thank
Johnson
you.
for being a great moderator or whatever.
Did
Yeah,
we hit
sorry,
the
my
time
lip
hack?
gloss.
Are
We
people
did
gonna
it.
get their,
Yeah, they got their.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure.